Grace always felt invisible. In the bustling office of Crestmore Publishing, she was the assistant everyone forgot to thank, the girl who brought the coffee and fixed the printer but never got invited to after-work drinks. Her name was barely remembered, and when it was often mispronounced. But she didn't mind, not entirely. Grace had a secret. By day, she shuffled papers and organized calendars. But by night, she transformed into someone else entirely. In the quiet of her tiny apartment, she wrote stories about love, about courage, about women who found their voices. And tucked within those stories were pieces of her own life fears she never spoke aloud, hopes she hardly dared to hold. No one at the office knew that Grace was a writer, not even her best friend at work, Melissa. She preferred it that way. Her writing was the only thing that was truly hers, untainted by the cynicism and condescension she faced daily. It was her refuge. Her days were long, often filled with mundane tasks and the quiet ache of being overlooked. She was always the one who remembered birthdays and deadlines but was forgotten during team celebrations. She once brought in homemade muffins for a Monday meeting only to watch someone else get praised for store-bought cookies. Still, she smiled, nodded, and kept moving. Melissa sometimes noticed her drifting. "What are you always thinking about, Grace?" she'd ask. Grace would just smile and say, "Stories." In truth, the seed of those stories had been planted long ago. As a child, Grace spent hours in the local library. Raised by a single mother who worked double shifts, Grace learned early to find comfort in fiction. Books became her best friends. At school, she was shy and awkward, often sitting alone during lunch, scribbling in a notebook. Her first story, written at age 11, was about a girl who could hear the thoughts of books. It won a school contest, but her mother missed the ceremony because of work. Grace kept writing anyway. Years passed, and the stories became more complex, more personal. Writing was the one place she felt powerful. It was where her voice mattered. One person, in particular, inspired her more than anyone: Ethan Ross. A senior editor, Ethan was charming, articulate, and infuriatingly arrogant. He had a way of commanding every room he entered, speaking like his opinion was the final word on any matter. And though he never remembered Grace's name, he never missed a chance to offer a backhanded compliment or a sarcastic remark. "Good morning, assistant." "Or are you the new intern?" he'd said once, smirking as he walked past. Grace, flustered and red-faced, had only managed a nod. But at night, in her stories, she always had the last word. Her latest novel featured a brooding, brilliant editor named Nathan Cross, clearly modeled after Ethan, who hides a wounded heart beneath his sharp tongue. And the heroine? A quiet, underestimated assistant named Lila, who discovers her strength through her writing. Grace poured everything into that manuscript. It felt different, realer, stronger. She wrote late into the nights, fueled by tea and the ache of wanting something more. When she typed the last sentence, she sat back in her chair, staring at the screen. Her heart raced. Once finished, she hesitated, her finger hovering over the mouse as she debated whether to publish it. But something in her whispered, "Do it." Maybe it was a desire to prove she was more than the girl no one noticed. Maybe it was a quiet hope that someone, somewhere, would read her words and feel seen. So she self-published under a pen name. And then, something incredible happened. The book started to sell. Slowly at first, a trickle of downloads, a few reviews. Then, like wildfire, it caught. A popular bookstagrammer posted about it, calling it raw, romantic, and quietly revolutionary. A TikTok user made a viral video crying over Nathan and Lila's final kiss. Sales exploded. Grace watched in stunned silence as her numbers climbed, her inbox flooded, and her story became the talk of the bookish internet. Emails poured in, readers thanking her for writing a heroine who felt like them, messages about how her words helped someone through a breakup, through loneliness, through life. And no one knew it was her. At work, Melissa noticed Grace glowing. "You're different lately," she said one morning. "Did something happen?" Grace hesitated, then smiled. "Maybe. I just feel seen." Back at the office, the buzz reached Crestmore. Editors discussed the book at lunch, trying to guess the identity of the mysterious author. Ethan, curious and slightly skeptical, downloaded the book. He read it in 2 days. He didn't sleep the night he finished it. He couldn't shake the feeling that he knew the author, knew the voice, knew the way the words wrapped around his flaws, like someone had been watching him, seeing through him. The scenes felt too familiar, the dialogue too specific. And the main character, Nathan there, was no mistaking it. He was reading about himself, but softer, deeper, seen in a way he hadn't known was possible. Then, one day, Grace made a mistake. In a rush, she sent an email to a potential agent from her work address. The signature was unmistakable. The next morning, Ethan walked into her office. "So, you're Lila," he said, holding up his phone, the cover of her novel glowing on the screen. Grace froze. Her hands trembled. There was nowhere to run. It wasn't supposed to go like this," she whispered. "You wrote this about me," he said, not accusing, just amazed. She looked down, unable to meet his eyes. "I didn't mean to, it just happened." There was silence, long, heavy, and then something unexpected. "You made me better than I am," he said quietly. Grace looked up. "You made me someone worth rooting for." After that, things changed. The office buzz grew louder. Grace became a quiet legend, the girl who wrote the book. But she didn't stay long. Grace left Cressmore. Not out of shame, but because doors were opening everywhere. Her book was picked up by a major publisher. She was invited to literary panels, podcasts, interviews. Her next book was eagerly awaited. She moved into a new apartment a little bigger, with sunlight that kissed her desk every morning. Her days were now filled with deadlines she chose, characters she created, and letters from readers who saw themselves in her words. Some nights, she would sit by the window with a cup of tea and reread the messages sent to her, stories of people who found courage in her words, women who left toxic relationships, teens who dared to dream. She would think about the girl who once sat alone at lunch with a notebook and smile. Weeks later, at a packed book signing in a cozy Manhattan bookstore, she spotted him. Ethan, standing near the back, watching. He looked different, less guarded, almost nervous. After the event, he approached her. He handed her an envelope. Inside, a letter. "Grace, I read the book again. This time, not as the editor who thinks he knows everything, not even as the man who inspired your character. This time, I read it as someone who misses the girl who saw the best in him when he didn't deserve it. If you ever want to write another story, I'd be honored to co-author it. Yours, Ethan." Grace smiled through tears. She looked at him. "Let's write it," she said. And they did, together.
The end.